Alright, this is going to be part 2 of our DataGrid tutorial, and we are going to start off to correct something. In order to do that, I'm going to get rid of this read-only property. I think we don't need that anymore. And can user sort columns? I'm going to get rid of those two properties and rerun this, because the error I'm talking about is in the sorting. So now I should be able to sort these columns. So when I sort based on the artist column, I noticed these two records are not in correct order. So number 14 and 15, they should start with A in alphabetical order, but it's not. So we are going to correct that. That's coming from the CSV file we have. And if we go back to CSV file, we'll notice there are two extra spaces, one here, one here, that shouldn't be there. So if we get rid of that, those two spaces, I think we should be okay. If I rerun this, now the data should sort properly. All right, ascending or descending. Okay, so now that we took care of that, let's cover a few more properties while we're here. So one of those properties is RowBackground. I think this is kind of self-explanatory, and this sets the background of the rows, excluding the headers and column headers and row headers. So just the data area. Okay, we can take this one step further and set the alternating row background, and this will set the color of the alternating rows. So let's say burly wood for the alternating row. Now we got the alternating row with different colors than the row background. Okay, let's run this, see how it looks. I think it's pretty nice. Okay, so that's that. Let's touch on another property real quick, and that's the flow direction. The default is left to right, but if your application requires right to left flow, you could do so. Just set the property to right to left, and your data will flow from right to left. Okay, let's switch this back to left to right, and let's continue. At this point, we have seen quite a good number of properties. Before we get into some other stuff, well, by some other stuff, I mean the other data here, I'm going to increase the font size to make it a little more comfortable and large on our data grid. So now we got a little bigger font size, easier to see for some people and myself. Okay, so we still have a bunch of data here that we need to address. We need to pull into our data grid. So let's go start with, let's see. All right, so far we did the ID, we did the title, and the artist. So we'll go ahead and start with, or continue with, all right, this last one, the soundtrack. So we're going to create two properties for this data, piece of data. One of them is going to be whether it's a soundtrack or not, and the other one, the title of the movie. Okay. So let's go back to our code behind, and let's first create a Boolean type of property, and this is going to be is soundtrack. Okay, and the next one is going to be a string type movie title. Okay. All right, so let's get the data for those two properties. So we'll say is soundtrack equals. Now we gotta pull in here. We gotta determine whether it's a soundtrack or not. So our data has unknown. So if it's unknown, we want to say no, we don't know. Else, we want to get the title of the movie, right? Else, it's going to return true. So we're going to say that's the last piece. As let's see, the index of that piece of information is 0, 1. So 0 is ID, 1 is the title, 2 is the genre, 3 is artist, and 4 is the soundtrack. Okay, so line 4. Well, now we got an error. It says cannot implicitly convert type string to bool. So we have to say if this information equals to unknown, if we don't know whether it's in soundtrack or not, we're going to return true, else we're going to return false. So that takes care of that. Okay, if we go back here and rebuild our solution, we'll have a nice check mark that says whether it's a soundtrack or not. So let's run this. Again, DataGrid is smart enough to display checkbox for Boolean values. Okay, awesome. That's why you got a DataGrid. All right, so the next one is quite simple. So the movie title, oops, I forgot the comma. Movie title equals same piece of information, just that's a plain string, so we don't have to worry about anything else. And if we go back here, rebuild again, we'll have the title of the movies that the song belongs to, or a soundtrack of. Okay, one thing to notice, the name of the property here up top here is soundtrack. It is not completely visible. That's because our data grid is set to size to cells. Let's see if we set to auto, if that makes any difference. And build again. Well, auto seems to be better. So auto will determine, can go either way. So auto, if the width of the title is larger than the data inside, it will adjust accordingly. And if the title is, let's say, smaller than the data, it will adjust to the data, which is perfect. That's what we want in this case. Okay. All right, so let's move on to the next one. Let's see what else we have. So we have the genre left here. genre. Okay, so we gotta create an enum for that. All right, so we have heavy metal, hard rock. What are the spaces here? Okay, rock, jazz, funk, blues, pop, country, classic rock, got soft rock, we got classical, Christmas Carol, pop and soul, and soul, R&B, folk, and all that good stuff. Okay, so let's create an enum here. Let's go right below our song class. Let's create public enum. Let's call this genre. This is going to be a little tricky, just so you know. So let's see. All right, let's type in heavy metal. All right, so it turns out we can type in, let's say, sentences that contains spaces. So it has to be one single word with the enums. Now we're going to run into problems after this, but we'll solve it. Okay, so hard rock, we'll make it one single word. Soft rock, classic rock, plain rock, pop and I think soul. Can't use special characters as well. Let's see. What else do we have? Soul, blues, jazz. Let's see. R&B. Again, we can't use special characters. It's just to be plain text. Country, folk, funk. Let's see, did we cover everything? Let's see. So we got this, we got this, we got rock, we got jazz, we got funk, we got blues, we got pop, I think. Yep. We got, let's see, pop and soul. We got pop, plain pop. We got country, we got classical rock. We got soft rock. We got rock, rock also. We got classical. Did we get classical? Not sure. I think we didn't yet. All right, let's add that. Okay. Christmas Carol, we didn't get that, I think. Let's break the line, it's getting too long. Again, we have to do a single word. Let's see, pop soul, I think we got that. Country, we got it. Soul, we got it. Yep, pop soul, we got it. R&B. bulk, pub, and software. I think we got pretty much everything. All right, so we are going to create a new property here, and this is going to be type of genre, and let's call this genre. Keep it simple. All right, so we got a new property. Now we have to get the information from our file, right? All right, so genre equals, and this is going to be a little tricky again, similar to this guy here. If I say, well, first of all, we have to cast it to genre. And then we're going to say enum dot parse, and say type of genre and the string value. So the string value is coming from line 4. No, actually it's line 2, I think. The second index, right? 0, 1, 2. Yep. Okay. So seems like it's okay, but let's see. Let's go back to our design view, and let's build this. See what happens. No. And we lost everything. No design view. Our data, everything's gone. Let's run this, see what happens. And we got an exception. So it says hard rock was not found. Again, this data is coming with the spaces in between, but our enum class doesn't have any spaces, so it can't match the data. Okay, so we're going to do something similar to this guy here. We're going to say if this guy equals, let's see, we have to do trim, the trimming. All right, I'm going to go up here and say var John, let's say G equals line 4, well, line 2, actually index of 2, dot split. Now we have more than one character, so we're going to use an array. We have to define multiple characters to split the data with. So the first one is space. We know some of them has spaces in, and 1 or 2 of them has an and symbol or character, so let's throw that in there. And some of them have dashes, so let's throw that in there too. So we're splitting with the data with using 3 characters, right? And then we're going to come over here. Well, actually, I think we'll do right below here. Say var result, genre result, called gr equals g dot. Okay. So if g dot length greater than 1, we're going to say add g 0 plus, so the first index of this is going to be an array here, string array, and we know the length of most of these are 2, so it can't be more than 2. We'll add the first one and the second one, so g second, which is the index of 1, else we'll just say g0. Okay. And we'll come down here, we'll pass that in, GR, genre result. We'll pass that in. I think that takes care of that. Let's go back to our design and, well, something, this actually, when XAML, they first started with XAML, WPF, this IntelliSense wasn't so good. Now it's great, actually. It tells you the error it's receiving, which is helpful, which is greatly improves or speeds up the process. All right, so let's go ahead and rebuild this. And now we got our data back with genre. Beautiful. Let's run this. And it's running and showing our data as it's supposed to be. Well, this is actually a special column. If we double click on this, we'll have the combo box show up. Okay, it's not just data. It has an underlying combo box if you double click on data. For just reading, I guess it shows regular text block, but we'll see more of that when we get into custom data grid, okay? But just remember, this one is a combo box underneath when you double click on the piece of information. The others don't. The others just text box. Okay, because this is an enum. All right. Okay, so that's that. I'm gonna go grab some more information to show you something else with the dates. So I'll be back, okay? All right, so I went out and got the release date of these songs and added to our CSV file as an additional piece of information, okay? So we have all this, just the year, not the details, not the month, day. I'm just interested in the year. Okay, so that's our data. Now we are going to add that to our grid view. All right, so let's go back to our code behind and let's add a new property to our class. It's going to be type of Datetime, and we'll call this release year. Just, yeah, release date. Well, it's not a full date, so let's go with year. Okay. All right, so let's go up here in our for loop. Let's add release year equals, and this is going to be the 5th index, so 1 0 1 2 3 4 5th 5. All right, so we have to cast it since it's a date and time. All date and time, the parse, actually we have to parse it. We gotta parse it. It's coming as string, so line 5. Let's see what happens. Let's go back to our design and rebuild this. Let's see if it works, and it didn't work. If we take a closer look at this error we're getting here, it says hard was not found. Requested value hard was not found. So which tells me we messed up. I messed up the file as I was adding the dates to it. So, and it turns out I added a space without realizing it to the genre of the record number 2. All right, let's save this again and try again, see what happens. So let's build this. Okay, now we got something. All right, we got another error. So I thought it worked for a minute, but then it didn't. So we have this error says string was not recognized as a valid date, which tells me we have incorrect format here. So we're going to figure out to parse this. So this is getting the 5th value from here, which is this piece of information. Date has to be in certain format. So we got this is coming as string, so we need to add another string to add month and year. So comma, year, comma, month. So this is a string value. We have to add comma right after it. And add this for date, month, and then one for day. We're just making up stuff for month and day. We don't need really that information. But I'm just adding to get that correct format in our data grid. Okay, let's try this one more time. Build this, and great, it worked. Okay, so if we come over here, we'll see the date field, the release year field populated. Okay, let's run this, see how it looks. Excellent.